Welcome, everyone. I'm going to wait just a little bit longer before I get started. If for some reason you can't see me or hear me, please let me know in the chat. This is my first time using this webinar platform, and I did a test run earlier, which went fine, so don't anticipate any problems, but let me know if there's any issues. So it's 7:01. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining. Again, this webinar will be about the similarities and differences between the divisions of college baseball. So I'm going to share my screen and get into my presentation. Okay, so before I get started, so I have about 30 slides that I'm going to go through, and I'm going to move through them pretty fast. I will answer questions at the end, so if you have a question, please type it in the chat, and then I will get to it at the end. And we'll see. I may pause between sections from time to time to see if there's any questions as well. The other thing I want to point out is that some of what I'm going to present is going to be based on facts. For example, like the number of schools in each division. Other things are going to be my opinions based on my experience. Okay? For example, one of the sections will be like average metrics for each division. Okay, so as I'm going through this, I'll definitely be transparent about, which is which. So the reason I had this idea for this webinar is because in my conversations over the past many years with hundreds of high school baseball players and their families, I've realized that a lot of people don't understand the similarities and differences between the various divisions of college baseball. So if you're in that boat, you are definitely not alone. So some of the misconceptions that I've come across or I've heard, and this definitely is not an exhaustive list, but some of the misconceptions, one would be that D3 baseball is no different than high school baseball. Junior college is only for poor students. Another misconception. Division III and NAIA baseball are pretty much the same. Another myth or misconception. Only D1 players can play beyond college. Okay, definitely not the case. Okay, and again, this isn't an exhaustive list. There's many other misconceptions, but these are some of the things that I've heard through the years that are not completely accurate or not accurate at all. So now, why is this all important? So if you buy into one of these misconceptions that I just listed or any others, then you risk disregarding schools that could be a good fit for you in the college baseball recruiting process. So learning about all the divisions, what's the same about them, what's different about them, will help you make an informed decision about finding your best fit. And ultimately, for the players that I work with, that is my goal. Okay, I'm not keeping a tally of how many D1 commits I get. For me, it's about finding the best overall fit for playing college baseball and helping players maximize their options for doing that. So in case you don't know who I am, I think I have some people on this call that are are players and parents of people I already work with. So obviously you already know me, but if you don't, my name is Matt Sherm. I live in Iowa. I'm from near Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Played high school baseball, played college baseball, and then I got into college coaching. Was in college coaching for a long time. I coached at an NAIA school in Kentucky, then moved to North Carolina, and then back to Iowa. Most recently, I was the head baseball coach at Central College, which is a Division III school in Pella, Iowa. So have a lot of college coaching experience, a lot of recruiting experience in a variety of different settings and levels. I got out of college coaching in July of 2021, and I joined a company called College Athlete Advantage, where our mission is to help high school baseball players and their families maximize their options for playing college baseball and then find their best fit. Okay, so that's my background and kind of my, the reason that I am qualified to talk about this topic. All right, so to get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation, let me pause just a second here. Okay, so the three primary associations that I'm going to talk about today, the NCAA, National Collegiate Athletic Association. This is the most well-known association. Has three divisions: Division I, Division II, Division III. The NAIA is the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, just one division of college baseball. So completely separate from the NCAA. Okay, different rules. When it comes to a variety of different things, which we'll get into. And then the NJCAA, the National Junior College Athletic Association, also has three divisions: Division I, Division II, Division III. So we'll talk about some of the differences between those. I did not, in this presentation, I have not included club baseball, which is potentially an oversight because there are a lot of institutions that offer really good club baseball programs. But for the sake of time, I'm going to focus on these because these are when majority of players want to play college baseball, they're primarily looking at these three associations. So number of programs in each division. NCAA Division I, there are 300. And I think this data is from 2023. So these numbers will vary from year to year, give or take a few schools. You always have some schools that, shift divisions or some schools will close down or drop certain sports. So this can shift, but these are going to be very close. So 300 D1, NCAA D2, 253. NCAA D3 is 432. That's your biggest division of college baseball. NAIA is 212, and junior college is 406. All right, so this was a tweet that I made quite a while ago, year and a half or so ago, and this was my estimation of the hierarchy of levels or divisions in college baseball. Okay, so let me take a little bit of time to explain this. And again, this is one of these things that this is my opinion. This is not absolutely correct, but kind of based on my experience, I think this is pretty close. So what I've done here is kind of divided each division into subdivisions, okay, like high, medium, and low. All right, so from top to bottom here, when you talk about quality of competition, this is, I think, close to how this would go. And the way that I think about this is if a Power 5 school played a mid-level D1 school 10 times against each other head to head, Power 5 is going to win more times than not. Okay? Doesn't mean the mid-level D1 is not going to win any games, because they probably will. But Power Five is probably going to win more than half of those games. Okay, if you go Power Five against like a lower D1, they're going to win even more of those 10. Okay, so that's kind of how I thought about this as I was making this list. Okay, so we have D1, the Power Five schools. These are the ones that you're probably most familiar with, the ones that are on TV most of the time, the ones you see, playing college football and that are in March Madness right now. You have mid-level, mid-major D1s, and then high junior college. And you may notice I put high junior college ahead of low D1. Junior college baseball at the highest level are D1 athletes, okay, guys that are going to become D1 and professional athletes. It's very, very high level baseball. And if you put one of the best junior college programs in the country against any D1 school with their best pitchers going, it's going to be very competitive. So low D1, high Division II. Again, the best Division II programs, very, very good baseball. They're going to beat a lot of D1 programs on any given day. NAIA, okay? NAIA, the best NAIA programs are, again, very good baseball. Okay, the NAIA program that I coached at in Kentucky, we were kind of middle of the road when I was there a long time ago. Over the past 8 to 10 years, they have been top 10 to 20 in the country for NAIA. I saw a tweet that they posted after their fall season, and they had like 6 guys throwing in the 90s, one throwing mid 90s consistently, okay, pitchers, guys. So again, there's a lot of NAIA programs that, if they're throwing their top pitchers against any D1 program, they're going to be very competitive with them. And then we have, mid-level D2s, mid-level junior colleges, high-level D3s. Even your best D3s, I have seen D3s beat D1 programs. Okay, now, is that going to happen if they played 10 times? Are they going to win more than half? Probably not. Okay, but I have seen D3 programs beat Division I programs. It has happened. Mid NAIA, low Division II, mid D3, low junior college, low NAIA, low Division III. So there's a very wide variance, especially if you get to D3 NAIA junior college. There's a very wide gap between the best schools and the lower schools in those divisions. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Again, this is just my opinion, but I think this is probably pretty close. If these different levels were playing head to head. I'm going to pause there. I'll check the chat, see if anybody's posted any questions. Nothing yet. So again, if you have any questions, please post in the chat. Also, if there's any technical difficulties or anything, please post that as well. All right, so metrics and stats. Now, I want to cover a few things before I kind of give my opinions based on my experience of, what metrics and stats coaches are looking for at each level of college baseball. It's important to keep in mind that metrics and stats matter more to some coaches than others. Okay. There are some coaches who really don't care much at all about metrics or stats. Okay. There's some coaches that prefer stats to metrics and vice versa. Okay, there's coaches that prefer some metrics more than others. There may be some coaches that value a 60 time more than others, and another coach values exit velocity more than others. So there's a wide variance in what coaches are looking at within each division. I also say that level of competition matters. Okay, if a player has really good stats, but it's against poor competition, okay, there's going to be a lot of question marks with college coaches around that. So it does help to, especially if your high school team, you're a smaller school and you don't play against good competition, it can help to play travel baseball against higher level competition. And if you perform well, that's going to carry more weight with college coaches. Okay. So again, the following metrics are my best estimates. Okay. What coaches actually want will vary from program to program. So we'll get into this. So 60 times. So pitchers and catchers, not really a big deal. Obviously, faster is better. Lots of times coaches will equate 60 time with a measure of athleticism, which is sometimes may or may not be fair, but doesn't not a big deal, not a huge priority for pitchers and catchers. Okay, corner infielders, 7.0 to 7.5. Probably, your higher division schools, your higher level schools are looking for, more in this 7.0 range, whereas, your lower level schools, towards the 7.5 range. Again, corner infielders, speed is not as high of a priority than middle infield or outfield. Okay, so middle infield, somewhere between 6.7 and 7.2. Again, your higher level D1 programs are going to want to see these numbers in the sixes, whereas lower level programs would recruit guys with a little bit slower time. And then outfield 6.5 to 7.0. Your power 5 center fielders. Most coaches are going to want an extremely fast player for that position. Whereas lower levels would take a guy that's not quite as fast. Pitching velocity. So NCAA Division I, probably looking 88 plus, okay, before they're showing a ton of interest in a player. Okay, for a left-handed pitcher, maybe slightly lower than that, but looking at 88 plus. D2, 85 plus, D3, 82 plus, NAIA and junior college, 84 plus. Again, there's going to be a wide variance. Okay. There are, D3 programs that will recruit a pitcher that's throwing in the mid 70s because they need pitchers on their roster, or maybe they see somebody who has a lot of potential that they can develop. All right. There's also D3 programs that are going to want to see guys, 85 plus. So that's going to be the case at all levels. There's going to be a variance. Catcher pop time. So D1 looking in that 1.8 to 2.0 range. D2 1.9 to 2.1. D3 2.0 to 2.2. And then NAIA is going to be, and at junior college will be similar to the Division II programs. Catcher velocity. I think pop time is generally more important than this for most coaches, but some benchmarks: NCAA Division I 80 plus, throwing down to second base, 78 plus for D2, 75 plus for D3, and 78 for NAIA and junior college. Infield velocity, D1's looking for 85 plus. D2 83 plus, D3 81 plus, and then NAIA junior college 83 plus. So you're going to see a lot of similarities between D2, NAIA, and junior college for a lot of these metrics. But again, there's a wide variance between the higher levels of those divisions and the lower levels of those divisions. Not really important for first base. First basemen don't generally. Coach will take a first baseman that doesn't have a very good arm, especially if they can really hit. Outfield velocity, D1's looking for 90 plus, D2 85 plus, D3 80 plus, and then NAIA junior college 83 plus. Again, these are my estimations based on kind of my experience in seeing what type of players that these various coaches at these divisions recruit. And then exit velocity, D1 95 plus, D2 90 plus, D3 85 plus, and then NAIA and junior college 90 plus. Exit velocity is a tricky one because ultimately it matters much less than how you perform in a game. Okay? If you can hit 110 miles an hour off a tee, that's great. But if you can't hit in a game, you're not going to get recruited by a D1 coach. So exit velocity is more of a power potential type stat. You really need to show that power production in games to really make it matter a ton. All right, so before I move on to scholarships, I'll pause for a second. Chad asked, what are the most asked for metrics when they look at my recruits? Yeah, that's a good question. I think, just throwing velocity in general, whether it's, pitching for the most part. And I think there are, I hear people say this a lot, like, why do college coaches care so much about velocity? Why don't they care about pitchers who get outs? And I understand that totally. Like, why wouldn't a D1 coach want a pitcher that throws 85 who's very polished and gets outs versus a pitcher who throws 92 but doesn't know where the ball is going? Okay, and I think that's a valid argument, but ultimately, I think in a D1 coach's mind, number one, they think, well, I can probably help that guy that throws 92 get better and throw more strikes. And also, they can probably find quite a few guys that throw 92 that also get outs and are, polished like the 85 guy. Okay, so I think that's kind of the two things that go that are on coaches' minds as far as pitching velocity. But, so for pitchers' velocity, I think, arm strength is an important one that coaches look at for position players as well. And then, 60 time. Again, there's, I've heard a lot of people say, and I agree with this, like when in a baseball game does a player sprint for 60 yards straight? Like, not very often, but it just kind of is what it is. It is the metric that has been used, and I don't see any changes to that. And it is something that that coaches really value. Okay, so let's get into scholarships. So NCAA Division I they're able to offer 11.7 scholarships. Okay, and I'm going to leave it. I'm going to go into more detail on my next slide. I'm actually going to go to a different document off of my slideshow to go into more detail on this. So for right now, I'll just say 11.7 for D1, 9 for D2. D3 does not offer athletic scholarships. NAIA can offer 12. Junior college D1 can offer 24, as can D2. Junior college D3 does not offer athletic scholarships. Okay, so I'm going to pull up a different document here that will go into a little bit more detail on scholarships. So D1, like I said, they are allowed to offer 11.7 scholarships. Those scholarships can be divided up amongst 27 players. And the roster size is 35. Now, this is actually shifted due to starting with the COVID. So as of right now, they've moved this to a max roster size of 40 and 32. They can divide up their scholarships among 32 players. Okay, so I know it's that way at least through the 25 season. I'm not sure if and when it will come back down, but the minimum scholarship amount is 25%. So very few players get a full ride. Okay, almost all scholarships are partial scholarships, and I think that's why it's really important to be a good student. GPA is really important because most of these schools can stack athletic and academic money on top of each other. If you're a good student and you get baseball money on top of that, it can add up to a pretty good scholarship. D2, 9 scholarships. Again, a lot of these are partial scholarships. D3 does not allow scholarships. NAIA can a maximum of 12. Junior college, D1, they can offer 25 full scholarships, and that includes tuition, room, and board. Okay, so they can give 24 full scholarships. That's what they're allowed to do. D2, they can offer 24 as well, but only tuition, not room and board. Okay, so if you get a full scholarship at D2, you're still going to have to pay for room and board. And then D3, junior college Division III, does not offer scholarships. Now, probably the most important point I'll make here is that not all schools are fully funded, which means that the school may not allow the maximum number of scholarships allowed by their association. Okay, so just because D1s can offer 11.7 scholarships, that's the max they're allowed to offer, there are some programs that their institutions don't support that. So they may only have 4 or 5 scholarships. Okay, and that is the same across the board, D2, NAIA, junior college. Not every school is fully funded. Okay, so it's certainly possible that you get a 25% scholarship from one school and a 40% scholarship from another school. And that 25% scholarship, that school may want you more than the other school, but they're not funded as well, so they just can't offer as much. So that's important to keep in mind as you're kind of comparing scholarship offers. Another thing is junior colleges in California do not offer baseball scholarships, okay, or athletic scholarships or any point for any sport. Okay, so that's a California junior college thing. All right, before I move on to timelines, I'll check the chat again. Yeah, Chad, so California junior colleges in California do not offer athletic scholarships. Whether they're D1, D2, D3 junior colleges, none of them offer athletic scholarships. It's I should say that the California the California Junior College Association, there may be some private junior colleges that do in California, but the ones that are within the California Junior College Association do not offer athletic scholarships. Okay, so recruiting timelines. All right, so again, this is kind of based on my experience. There is going to be some variance between, different coaches. Okay, so D1s typically they will scout freshmen and sophomores, and then they recruit juniors and seniors. Okay, the rules have changed recently, which I'll talk about more in a minute. Where there used to be a lot of early commitments, like 8th graders, freshmen, and sophomores committing. They've changed the rules a bit to prevent some of that. So I'll talk more about that in a minute. D2 generally scout sophomores and juniors, and then recruit juniors and seniors. Recruit juniors late, meaning most D2 programs won't start contacting players until the second half of their junior year. In fact, I'd say most of them maybe don't even start until after the junior year, but there are some, I have seen some that have started, like January of the junior year. Okay. And there may even be some that start earlier than that, but I would say that's more of an exception than a rule. And then the other divisions, D3, NAIA, junior college, they're generally scouting juniors and recruiting seniors. Okay. So most D3, NAIA, and junior college programs are not contacting players until the summer after their junior year is over. Okay, or the summer before their senior year. There are exceptions. I do know, there's one junior college here in Iowa that their strategy is to get on guys early. So, they're contacting some juniors as early as November, December, January. But again, I think that's an exception more than a rule for most programs at those divisions. All right, so recruiting rules. Division I, communication can start on August 1 before the junior year. And this is the big rule that's changed a couple of years ago. It used to be they could start communication through a third party earlier than that, where, like, let's say a college coach was interested in recruiting a freshman in high school. The rule used to be that the coach couldn't call that player, but the coach could call someone like me and have me tell the player to call the coach. And if the player initiated the communication, the coach could talk to them. That they've done away with that. It's not legal anymore. Now communication cannot start in any way before August 1st, before the junior year of high school. Okay. Like I said in the previous slide, though, D1 coaches are scouting freshmen and sophomores because they want to know who they want to call on August 1st. Okay, so they are definitely watching younger players. Campus visits can start September 1st of the junior year. Visits at school or home. So if a coach wants to come visit you at your high school or in your home, that can start July 1st before the senior year. And this is subject to the recruiting calendar, which I have linked here. There are, as you can see, contact periods, dead periods. So like during a dead period, it's not permissible for contacts to happen or a recruiting shutdown. A quiet period is a little bit different. It's a period when it's permissible to make recruiting contacts on campus, but no off-campus contacts can be made. Okay, so this calendar is accessible online. If you just Google Division I recruiting calendar, you'll have access to this very document. So there are periods when they have less, they're not allowed as much contact. Okay, Division II communication can start on June 15th before the junior year. Okay, so this is earlier than D1. Okay, D1 is August 1st, D2 is June 15th. Okay, now like I said earlier, there's not a lot of D2 coaches that are actually communicating that early, but they are allowed to at that point. Campus visits can start the same day. And school visits or in-home visits can start that same time as well. So the rules are actually less restrictive for D2 than D1. But again, most D2s are not contacting players that early. Okay, there is also a D2 recruiting calendar that is different. Again, you can find this online. There's not as much variance with their dead periods and so forth. Other divisions. So communication can take place anytime. So a Division III coach, they could text or call a freshman in high school. None of them do, okay, but they are allowed to. Okay. I shouldn't say none of them do. I'm sure it happens, but it's would be very rare. Campus visits can take place anytime, except for official visits to D3 schools cannot start until after January 1st of the junior year. Okay, the thing about D3 schools, though, is that unofficial visits could happen at any time. The difference between an official and an unofficial visit is on an official visit, the college is paying for the visit. Okay, they're like paying for to take the family and player out to eat and so forth. An unofficial visit is paid for by the actual player and family. And honestly, most NCAA Division III schools, their visits are mostly unofficial anyway. Okay, so with some exceptions, but so the fact that they can't start official visits until after January 1 doesn't mean a whole lot, because most of the coaches will just do unofficial visits anyway, even after that date. They could visit a player at the high school or do an in-home visit anytime as well, freshman through senior year. Pause there. All right. So as far as roster size, NCAA D1 can as of now can have up to 40 on their roster. Like I talked about earlier, that's up from 35 that started with the COVID changes, but it's still up there at 40 right as of right now. Every other division has no limit. Okay, so you may see I know a really good D2 program that has like 80 or 90 players on their roster in the fall. And a lot of these programs have JV programs, or what they call development programs. Okay, so I've had players and families kind of be surprised about that, but there are a lot of D2, D3, NAIA programs that have junior varsity, where and that's why they carry so many players. Is they may have a separate junior varsity with separate coaches and a separate schedule. Okay, so different coaches treat that differently. So that's definitely something that, if you visit a D2 program or a D3 program and you see 60 or 70 or more guys listed on their roster, that's something, the JV program or development program is something you want to ask about. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as you go through the process. Now, even with these levels, as far as postseason play, there are limits. So, if NCAA D2 program goes to the postseason, there is a limit to how many players they can travel to those. So, but as far as on their official roster, there isn't a limit. Okay, some differences in practice and gameplay rules. So NCAA Division I, they can play 56 games. Almost all of them are single 9-inning games, unless they have a rain out and need to do a doubleheader to make games up. NCAA Division I has 132 contact days. That's practice, scrimmage, and games throughout the calendar year. The fall is generally 45 days. That's starting on September 1st. And in the off season, so this would be between the fall and the spring, they are allowed 8 hours per week per player. And that's 4 hours for skill work with the coaches and 4 hours for strength and conditioning. Okay. As far as practice length, they're not allowed to have more than 4 hours of practice per day or 20 hours per week. And they do have to keep pretty they have to keep records of that to make sure they're not violating those rules. Division II, so they can play 50 games, mostly 9-inning games. Their spring season would start on January 10th. That's the first day they're able to practice, and it goes till the end of the season in May. End of the regular season or end of the postseason if they qualify for that. Their fall is 45 days, just like D1, and that is between September 7th and November 15th. Just like D1, off-season, 8 hours per week per player, 4 for skill work, 4 for strength conditioning, and the practice length is also the same. So Division III, they can only play 40 games, generally play 9-inning games, but if they're playing a doubleheader, they can be 7-inning games and still count as official games. Okay. If it's just a single one game in a day, they have to play 9 innings for it to count as an official game. They have 114 contact days. That includes fall and spring. in the off season, only strength conditioning is allowed, no coach contact. Okay, so D3 coaches are more restricted, and this has actually opened up quite a bit. They used to be even more restricted than this, but the D3 philosophy is more of a academic athletic balance. And so, they've set up parameters so that coaches cannot abuse, players, make them be at the field for hours and hours a day and therefore struggle academically. So it's safeguards for the academic athletic balance. Practice length, same thing as D1 and D2. NAIA, they can play 56 games. They mostly play 7-inning games. 24 weeks of practice and play. That includes the fall and the spring. When they take break weeks, so any week that they're not counting on that 24, they can only do strength and conditioning. Okay. So different programs treat that differently. Lots of it is based on weather, like northern programs will treat it differently than southern programs. But if they're not including a week in that 24, they can just do strength and conditioning during that week. And NAI programs can actually practice and train during the summer. It doesn't count in any of this other stuff. Now, most of them do not do that because most of their players are off playing in summer leagues, but they are allowed to do that. If there's players staying on campus, the coaches can work with them during the summer. Junior college, similar to NAIA, 56 games, mostly 7-inning games, 24 weeks of practice and play. That includes the fall and the spring, and break weeks are only strength and conditioning. So the NAIA and junior college associations are much less restrictive than the NCAA. Okay? The coaches have more contact time, especially compared to NCAA Division III programs. Okay, we'll pause there. All right, no more questions. All right, so types of institutions. Division I, mostly large public universities, but there are some small private universities as well. Okay, all D1s are 4 years. So D1 is not based on size. There, schools of any size can join NCAA Division I. Okay, now most smaller schools do not choose to because they're not going to be as competitive athletically, but there are some small private universities that are D1. A lot of them are on the East Coast or up in New England. Division II, wide variety of institutions. Okay, some are bigger, some are smaller, some are public, some are private. D2s are 4-year institutions. D3s, mostly small private colleges, but there are some large public universities that are affiliated with D3. Okay, like Wisconsin, for example, has a whole conference, the WIAC, Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. The schools in that conference are public universities, the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. Okay, and these are large universities that play Division III baseball. They are 4-year schools. NAI is mostly small private colleges. Again, those are 4-year schools. And then junior college, wide variety of sizes. They're all 2 years, all 2-year schools. So players at junior college, if they want to play 4 years, they transfer to a 4-year institution after their junior college experience is over. And some academic factors. So NCAA Division I institutions generally offer the widest selection of academic programs. Okay. And that's just because generally they're bigger institutions. They have more resources, more staffing, more faculty to offer a wider variety of academic programs. Another important point, D3 institutions offer the best athletic academic balance. So, and I mentioned that earlier, but it's a really important point. And it's not that Division III, it's not that they don't care about athletics. Okay, they're very competitive. They practice hard. The coaches, expect a lot, but there are those safeguards set up that I mentioned earlier that offer a better athletic academic balance, and that's very attractive for a lot of players and families who want to go on and play college baseball. Another important point: four-year institutions are generally more challenging academically than junior colleges. Okay, so 15 or 20 years ago, I saw, the majority of players going to junior college were, lower academic, not as high GPAs in high school. That's really shifted, though. There's a lot of good students that are going to junior colleges for mostly for development. If they're, a really good prospect, but they're not quite at the D1 level, and going D1 is important, or going to a higher level is important, then going to a lot of them choose to go to junior college so they can continue to develop and then potentially transfer to a higher level school. Cost is another reason. Junior colleges are generally much less expensive than four-year institutions. And so, a lot of students will choose to go junior college so that they can get their general education, some of their general education credits out of the way first during their first 2 years before they go on to a more expensive four-year institution. Okay. The tricky thing with that, though, is sometimes not all of those classes or credits will transfer from the junior college to the four-year school. Okay. So I've seen it where some players have to end up taking classes over again because it didn't transfer. So that's definitely something to ask questions about as you're going through the recruiting process. All right, so last slide here. If you want help finding your best fit, if you'd like to learn more about my service through College Athlete Advantage, please send me a text, email, Twitter DM. We can set up a one-on-one meeting to talk about your specific needs and see if it's a good fit. Have my cell number, email address, Twitter handle on there. But hopefully this was provided you some value. I definitely didn't get, I certainly could have gone deeper and probably made this a 2 or 3 hour meeting, but I wanted to keep it under an hour. So, hopefully you learned some things that you didn't know before and got some value out of this. So I'll pause one last time, check for questions. Yeah, but Jack, I saw you typing. I'll wait for a second in case you have a question. Yeah, you bet, Jack. See you're typing, Chad. I'll wait a sec here. You have more parents asking about placing their kids a certain division, or are they opening up? Yeah, that's such a good question. I think that's a really important part of my job, is providing the education on, just really trying to hammer home the importance of fit over level or division. But I think, every kid wants to play D1 baseball, and I get it. I did too. They get the most notoriety and fame. They get to play on TV. They're statistically more likely to go on and play professional baseball, which is every player's dream. So I get it. But the reality is that the best fit for the majority of high school players is not at the Division I level. That's why there's so many players in the transfer portal every year. And I don't blame kids for taking a chance at D1 if they have that opportunity. But, for a lot of players, it doesn't end up working out and they end up transferring to a lower, another division. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, I sent that out last Saturday. I did a case study on one of the players I worked with. He had options at every level, D1, D2, D3, NAI, junior college, and almost had a full ride scholarship to a D2, had some walk-on D1 opportunities, and he ended up picking a D3. And a big reason for that was academics. He wanted that academic athletic balance. And also he was a really good football player in high school. He wanted to try playing both sports, which he did his freshman year. He decided to give up football, and now he's starting on the baseball team. It's one of the better D3 programs in the country. He's having a great experience. But I'm rambling a little bit, but to answer your question specifically, I think there's still a lot of – most of my players are, at least when they start working with me, are pretty hyper-focused at playing at the highest level possible. And, through our process and educating them, most of them open up to other levels as well. Oh, thank you, Chad. I appreciate that. So for you others on there, and maybe I'll link this. I'll link the subscription page here to my newsletter. It comes out every Saturday, free. Have about over 100 subscribers now, so it's really grown. I'm proud of it, and gives a lot of free advice. Lots of general advice that you can use for your process. So if you don't subscribe to that, I recommend it. Comes out every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Please reach out if you have any questions, if you want to meet to discuss my service further, and look forward to talking to you in the future. Have a good night.